There ain't no countries anymore. No more good guys. They're running the whole show. They own everything, the whole goddamn planet. They can do whatever they want.
Do it to your own kind.
What's the threat? We all sell out every day. Might as well be on the winning team.
They are dismantling the sleeping middle class. More and more people are becoming poor. We are their cattle. We are being bred for slavery. Their intention to rule rests with the annihilation of consciousness. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain.
You need a place to stay? Chesterfield's over on 4th Street. They got hot food and showers. I'm going that way if you want me to show you. Steel mills were laying people off left and right. They finally went under. We gave the steel companies a break when they needed it. You know what they gave themselves? Raises. The whole deal's like some kind of crazy game. They put you at the starting line. The name of the game is make it through life. Only everyone's out for themselves and looking to do you in at the same time. So how are you gonna make it?
I deliver a hard day's work for my money. I just want the chance. It'll come. I believe in America. I follow the rules. Everybody's got their own hard times these days. It's inside there, Wilder. All kinds of cardboard boxes, some kind of lab setup.
What do you mean?
There's no singing. It's a tape recorder.
Leave it alone, man. It ain't none of my business, ain't none of yours.
We have to face facts. Only a few seconds got on the air. So it's time to forget about breaking in on top of their signal. They're only gonna jam us out again and again.
Then we have to send the shipment out on the street.
Look, lady, we're in trouble. The whole world's in trouble. They're all around us and we never knew it. You can only see them with these special glasses.
I've got one that can see.
That's far enough. Where'd you get those glasses?
Our transmitter is not powerful enough. The signal must be shut off at the source.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
We don't stand a chance with a few guns and grenades. We seek out and locate their signal and shut it off.
John Carpenter's They Live arrived on the 4th of November 1988 in the USA, but it wasn't until 7 months later that it got its UK release on the 23rd of June 1989. In some European territories it was retitled Invasion Los Angeles. Produced on a small budget of $4 million, it went on to gross $13 million and debuted at the #1 spot in the USA. It's unclear how much it made worldwide, but the movie was ultimately deemed a success. Critics at the time were mixed on it, however. Richard Harrington of the Washington Post was pretty harsh, saying the acting is wretched, the effects are second rate, and it makes V look like masterpiece theatre. Since its release, however, it's gone on to have a strong following, as more people have come to appreciate its efforts and its political themes of capitalism, its warnings of control, and the worries of people in power. They Live has managed to stand the test of time and become more relevant with politics of today. After the box office bomb Big Trouble in Little China, John Carpenter returned to his low-budget roots, first successfully with Prince of Darkness, which turned a profit, and followed by They Live. For the basis of the story, John Carpenter was inspired by the short story 8 O'Clock in the Morning, written by Ray Nelson, that was published in the magazine of fantasy and science fiction in 1963. The story is about a man who's put in a trance by a stage hypnotist. When he awakens, he realises the entire human race has been hypnotised, and that alien creatures are controlling humanity. He has only until 8 o'clock in the morning to solve the problem. Nelson, along with artist Bill Ray, adapted it into a story called Nada, published in the Alien Encounters comic book anthology. Carpenter was a huge fan of science fiction, more so than horror. He grew up with monster and invasion movies of the 50s. He came across the short story by Nelson and thought it would be great to adapt, what with it playing into John's interests in movies of the past. Carpenter acquired the film rights to both the comic book and short story. He wrote the screenplay using Nelson's story as a basis for the film's structure. With the original story being very short, he had to expand on it and slow everything down so that the reveal of the aliens being amongst us would come up later in the story. He felt the hypnotism idea was a bit cheesy, and that a different approach was needed. This resulted in the sunglasses revealing the human's true form. Carpenter decided to use the pseudonym Frank Armitage, as a nod to one of his favourite writers, H.P. Lovecraft. Henry Armitage is a character in Lovecraft's The Dunwich Horror. John always felt aliens should be evil, and movies such as Close Encounters and E.T. didn't work for him. In the classic sci-fi movies of the past, the aliens were always the enemy, and he tied that in with the political theme of the movie. Carpenter's growing distaste for the politics of the time, particularly when Ronald Reagan was elected, is very clear in the film. Carpenter was confused because Reagan was addressing people from a rich man's point of view. With Reaganomics, the idea was don't get in the way of the rich, and if you let them make more money, then the middle class will benefit, which they did, but only for a short period of time. The movie reflects upon the commenting on the greed and excess that was rampant during that decade. In the 80s, people were encouraged to spend, even when they didn't have the money. Debt was not something that was considered bad anymore and was acceptable. Reagan started destroying the unions and poverty started to increase as the bubble burst. Only a small percentage came out wealthy. John wanted to strike out and essentially made the Republicans the alien creatures. The aliens were deliberately made to look like ghouls, according to Carpenter, who said the creatures are corrupting us, so they themselves are corruptions of human beings. The film's stunt coordinator would end up portraying most of the aliens on screen. Alive Films, who partnered with Coralco and Universal, gave Carpenter a lot of freedom, but the flip side was that he was only entitled to a small budget. So with around $4 million, he cast the late great Roddy Piper to play John Nadder, a hard-working blue-collar guy. His character is never referred to by name, and you can only find out he's named Nadder during the end credits. He is referred to as John in the original making of. The name Nadder, I believe, was used in reference to the 1986 comic of the same name. Carpenter was a big fan of wrestling since he was a kid, and John met Roddy at WrestleMania 3 during the height of Roddy's popularity. They struck up a friendship, and Carpenter thought he would be perfect for the role because he had the look of a working class man. The classic line used in the movie, "I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass," was a line Roddy had come up with. He gave John a bunch of lines he used in his wrestling days, and they both felt that this was the best to use for that scene. The legendary Keith David plays Frank. John was impressed by David's work on The Thing, and specifically wrote the role of Frank for him. It's revealed Frank is from Detroit, and his wife and kids are still there. It appears he has come out to LA to find work, as the recession has dried up the jobs market. For the big epic punch-up, Carpenter wanted a classic fight. With Roddy Piper cast, you can't not have a fight. Keith had some experience with boxing, but wasn't a trained fighter. The stunt coordinator rehearsed with Piper and David for over a month and a half to create the ultimate fight that goes on for nearly 6 minutes. The always reliable Meg Foster plays Holly Thompson, who works for Cable 54, that dominates LA. Her job as the assistant program director. She becomes aware of Nadder's plans to reveal the aliens to the public and keeps close tabs on him. The late George Buckflower plays Drifter, a homeless man who gets easily persuaded by the aliens to join them and do their bidding for a taste of the wealthy lifestyle. George, I'm sure you recognise as the drunk guy from Back to the Future 1 and 2. He also popped up in John's other movies, Escape from New York, Starman and Village of the Damned. The awesome Peter Jason plays Gilbert, who is part of the rebels who have discovered the aliens have taken over. His job is to recruit more people to support the cause. Peter started working with Carpenter on Prince of Darkness and would continue to star in the rest of his movies from then on. Once the cast were in place, they set up the shoot in downtown LA and shot for 8 weeks from March 1988 till April. The movie opens with John Nadder drifting through LA looking for work. He notices the rise in the homeless and spots a preacher speaking out about how the rich and powerful have taken over. He talks about how everyone has been blinded to the truth and how human spirits have been corrupted by greed. John eventually manages to secure work at a construction site and befriends fellow construction worker Frank, who leads him to a local shantytown for food and a place to rest. John spots a nearby church which appears to have people coming and going, dropping off boxes. Helicopters circle the area and it all seems very suspicious. One of the homeless has a TV and complains of headaches, due to the TV signal being interrupted by a man warning everyone about those in power. John knows something is not right and spots one of his new friends, Gilbert, heading to the church. When the interrupting signal disappears, he goes to investigate and finds out the church is just a front. The choir heard outside is an audio recording, and the building is filled with scientific equipment and cardboard boxes. Nada finds a box hidden in the wall, but doesn't get a chance to take it. That night the police attack and bulldoze the shantytown, as the powers that be have decided to remove them. Nada returns the following morning to find the church empty, but manages to get the hidden box and takes it down an alley in the city. He finds it filled with sunglasses. John puts on the glasses and realises they reduce the colours of the world around him to black and white and allow him to see the subliminal commands to obey, consume, reproduce and conform. They also make clear that many people in positions of wealth and power are actually humanoid aliens. Freaked out, he stumbles into a grocery store and confronts an alien woman who then speaks into her wristwatch, notifying others about him. John attempts to flee but gets caught by 2 police officers that quiz him on how he got the glasses. He fights back and kills them both, grabs a shotgun and runs into a bank where he starts taking out the aliens. More police are alerted to his presence, so he hides in a car park and takes Holly as a hostage as she returns to her car. At her luxury hilltop home, John tries to convince her of the truth. Holly reveals she works for Cable 54, which John believes has some involvement with the aliens, but Holly quickly knocks him out through a window. John tumbles down a steep hillside and luckily escapes before the police arrive, losing his glasses in the process. He has to get another pair and find the rebels to get answers, but first he needs his new friend Frank to join him in the battle against the aliens. With They Live having a limited budget, the visual effects are kept to a minimum. It's also very conservative with its shots that sell the reality of the world and how you see the aliens via the sunglasses. The movie incorporates matte paintings, opticals and stop motion animation. For the small amount of money the production had, the visual effects have generally stood up quite well over time. The best effects shots are easily the matte paintings by Jim Danforth, who handles the special photographic effects for the film. Jim also worked with Carpenter on Prince of Darkness. The matte paintings are bordering on photorealistic. My favourite shot is when you see a wonderful wide shot of the city and you see all the hidden messages. When they shot the movie, Roddy didn't know what the aliens would look like, because all of the POV stuff would be shot later by John and a second unit team. The shots of the aliens in black and white, oftentimes the footage is a bit inconsistent in quality, exhibiting flicker, which could be a result of the age of the footage and the transfer to high definition, or it's possibly a grading issue. It may have been done on purpose, of course, to provide some slight distortion when you wear the glasses or contact lenses, which results in the headaches you get if you wear them for extended periods of time. As mentioned earlier, there is some stop motion animation, which I believe is only for the close-up of the drone that watches over the aliens. It's nothing special to look at. There are additional video effects and opticals, and there is a cool shot of the transport system the aliens use to jump to other galaxies. At the end, when a satellite is destroyed, you get a single matte painting with an optical explosion added. All the effects do the job in serving the story, and for the small budget they had, the FX team did a very good job. Alan Howarth teams up with John Carpenter for their final collaboration on the soundtrack. Alan and John started working together on Escape from New York. Alan provides the technology and did the mixing for John, but over time took on more composing duties. They Live takes on a bluesy sound that kickstarts the movie, then more the traditional synthesizer sounds take over. It leans more to the atmospheric sound that Carpenter was known for, but it doesn't quite have the action cues or memorable themes of his past scores, apart from the main blues theme that pops up during the movie and the end credits. What makes it stand out is its change of direction. John provides a blues sound that he hasn't done before, and nicely fits with the tone and style of the movie. Carpenter always composed the music once the movie was edited, and in most cases improvised a lot of the music. Once he got the bass line for the theme, he would build all the extra music around it. During the 80s, technology was improving every 6 months or so. Alan would add more tech to the studio so that they could play around with new sounds and recording techniques. Howarth slowed down recording of Carpenter's voice ordering people to sleep, a subliminal audio message that's heard by Piper's character when he puts on the glasses, and other sound effects were added to the mix that actually become part of the score instead of just an isolated sound effect. They Live got a soundtrack release in 1988 on CD and LP by Enigma Records, featuring 10 tracks totaling just over 30 minutes. It wasn't until 20 years later that Alan Howarth published a 20th anniversary expanded score, featuring 29 tracks totaling over 80 minutes of music. Some of the tracks do feature sound effects, which I'm never a huge fan of when it comes to soundtracks, but granted, many of the tracks are bonus ones which are taken directly from the movie's sound mix. Getting a physical copy of the score may prove a bit challenging, but it's available on iTunes for a very cheap price, and it's definitely worth adding to your collection if you're a fan of John and Alan's music. Personally, I don't think it's their best collaboration. I think that goes to Big Trouble in Little China, which has more energy and big action cues to make an overall better score and listening experience. They Live was a film in John Carpenter's catalogue of features that I didn't see growing up, and only caught it when it eventually made its way to DVD in the early 2000s. I experienced his previous movie Prince of Darkness the same way. At first I didn't know what to expect with it, but being a fan of John Carpenter I knew I was in for something interesting and fun. Thankfully, They Live certainly lives up to its cult status. It's very much remembered and praised for its political commentary. It's clear on what John is saying, who are the good guys and who are the bad. It's very straightforward with its message on greed, corruption and the neglect of the poor. It's certainly not subtle about its message. It's not trying to be balanced or say impartial. That's not its goal. It's a very cynical view on the world. You can accept it for what it is or choose to ignore that message. I think if you are not fussed about its political themes, you can still enjoy it for its science fiction elements. I love movies such as Body Snatchers or The Faculty, where there are monsters or aliens hiding in plain sight that are aiming to take over. It's that sense of paranoia and who to trust, even questioning the ones close to you. That makes those stories very appealing. Casting Roddy Piper I think would have been seen as risky. You have a guy who is a wrestler and not known as an actor by trade. We all know wrestling on TV has elements of acting, but it's not the levels of quality you expect from a feature film. Roddy had to prove that he could handle the material and hold the film together being the lead. Surprisingly, he does a very good job, thanks to John Carpenter who took the time to make sure we got the best performance out of him. A lot of people who don't have a strong acting experience, who are cast for their looks or say fighting skills, need a director that can help them, and some directors don't have the skills to work closely with actors, thus you end up with a bad performance. That's why Arnold Schwarzenegger does a great job with James Cameron and Jean-Claude Van Damme with Peter Hyams. Roddy is not given overly complicated lines of dialogue. A lot of his performance comes from his reactions to everything around him that really sells his performance. Owing to the relative success of the movie, it opened the doors for other wrestlers to take a stab at acting roles, although the majority didn't have much success. Hulk Hogan probably came the closest at the time, but Hogan really just played an extension of his wrestling persona and didn't demonstrate that he could be taken seriously as an actor. I think The Rock is the only one to have been truly successful in Hollywood and in breaking away from his wrestling roots. The epic fight in the film is superb. They try to keep it very realistic, with no martial arts involved, just a brutal punch-up with some wrestling moves thrown in for good measure. You'd think a fight just consisting of punches would be pretty dull for its length, but good lord, it's fantastic. It boasts excellent choreography and is brutal with its execution. It's shot in wide angles and long takes. They cut after an impact and not once they hit, which is perfect. It's definitely the most fondly remembered scene from the film for many, and who can blame them? It was also wonderfully spoofed in South Park in the episode Cripple Fight. Keith David is always fantastic in everything he does, and in They Live he gives another fine performance. His character wants to keep his head down and not get involved in Nada's conspiracy theory. He just wants to stick to the rules and avoid getting into trouble, but after some serious persuasion he fights back. All of his frustrations about his past and how he lost his job are all focused on getting revenge. It's sad that he gets killed off without much of a challenge, but he was just an extra cog in the system to help John, and thankfully his efforts are not wasted. Meg Foster doesn't really get much screen time, but when she is on screen she makes a big impact. Meg has that skill of selling her performance while saying very little. She has such a cold persona when she interacts with John for the first time. We the audience know she can't be trusted, and that Nada is totally naive. He is far too trusting after she knocks him out of a window. He is still kind to her, and has too much faith in her since she has been corrupted from the start. It's a shame that Nada can't persuade her, or for her to show signs of switching sides. The cinematographer Gary Kibb, who worked on Halloween 2 and Big Trouble in Little China as a camera operator, took on the main lighting duties for Prince of Darkness and remained Carpenter's DP for the rest of his movies. I personally think They Live is Gary's best work for John. I've not been a huge fan of Gary's, as a number of his movies look very flat with its lighting style. Robocop 3, for example, ends up looking like a TV movie, but They Live has a great cinematic look. It has a very natural design with its lighting to keep everything grounded in reality. Gary and John make great use of the CinemaScope format with great depth to the image. Nothing really looks flat or bland for once. During the slow build of John discovering the aliens, there are loads of lingering shots as the anamorphic format captures the city of LA. And I love the scene where John and Frank are cornered by the police. You have flares lighting up the alleyway, which is a simple but effective technique to create an interesting image. The ending I always felt was a little underwhelming. I didn't have a major problem with Frank and John dying at the end. I was a bit gutted they are killed off, but they have a heroic finale to tie in with its bleak ending. The battle to take over the cable station wasn't as action-packed as I would have liked. It all happens pretty fast, and it's self-contained to an office and then a corridor. The aliens attempt to track down John and Frank with a prop from Ghostbusters, the PKE meter. Why use that when it's clearly just taken from a very popular film? I think the props guy could have come up with a better alternative. The station doesn't seem to have a strong security, only having one satellite to hide the aliens' disguise. You would think they would have a backup. This plays into my idea that the aliens haven't been around for long and haven't expanded fully. They have snuck into power in order to gain some authority and take control of the city, but not the entire country. Because it seems isolated to LA. It's a bit like Body Snatchers from 1978, which focuses the events around San Francisco, so you never fully get enough information to think it's a worldwide problem. I think if you enjoy invasion movies such as Body Snatchers or even TV shows such as The Twilight Zone, then I think you will thoroughly enjoy They Live. It's a smart movie with a slice of Carpenter's own political sensibilities, reflecting on the times but also a look at the world of that period. It still works just as well today, as we are still manipulated by the media. We are still consumed by consumerism, like people's obsession for the latest iPhone or queuing up to get the latest Call of Duty game. I'm sure we've all done it at some point. In more recent interviews, Carpenter says he loves capitalism. He loves making money, but it's unrestrained capitalism that he has a problem with, which can lead to a recession. The film stands as a warning against unbridled capitalism and greed. It demonstrates how easily we can be manipulated by the powers that be. I don't think They Live is John Carpenter's best movie. I think that award still goes to The Thing, but it's certainly one of his most interesting. Mixing current events or political elements with sci-fi always seems to gel well. Sci-fi has often been used as a warning of how things could get worse for society. George Orwell's 1984 is a fine example of that. I don't think the film is preachy in any way. It's just a reflection of what was happening at the time in America, and the UK for that matter, as a result of the excess of the 80s and everyone's desire to get rich. It's not a long movie, it whips along nicely and has some great quotable lines thanks to Roddy Piper. It gets its message across in a simple and straightforward manner. It's classic John Carpenter. What more could you want?
Sleep. Sleep. Sleep.
Don't wear them glasses too long. It starts to feel like a knife turning in your skull.
How long have they been there? What are they? Where did they come from?
Well, they ain't from Cleveland.
Look, man, I don't need that kind of shit. What are we gonna do? We can't be the only ones who can see. We gotta find the people who made these.
You have any trouble getting here?
No, we made it fine.
Good. Well, the city's crawling with cops looking for us. Now, most of the cops are human. They've been told that we're commies trying to bring down the government. And some of them are being recruited. Creatures are trading wealth, power.
You mean people are joining up with them?
Most of us just sell out right away. Then all of a sudden we get promoted. Our bank accounts get bigger. We start buying new houses, cars. Perfect, isn't it? We'll do anything to be rich.
Look around at the environment we live in. Carbon dioxide, fluorocarbons, and methane have increased since 1958. Earth is being acclimatized. They are turning our atmosphere into their atmosphere.
What do these things want, and why are they here?
It's in their best interests. They're free enterprisers. The Earth is just another developing planet. Their third world.
We are like a natural resource to them. deplete the planet, move on to another.
Our projections show that by the year 2025, not only America, but the entire planet will be under the protection and the dominion of this power alliance. The gains have been substantial, both for ourselves and for you, the human power elite.
Where's that signal?
It's up on the roof, I think.
Holly works in there. If she made it, maybe we can find her. Then we can go to the roof and break that signal.
Wait, boys, wait. You're making a big mistake.
You made the mistake.
Don't do it. Don't interfere. You can't win.
If you enjoyed the video, you can find more on my YouTube channel, and also you can follow me on Twitter. If you want to help support the channel, you can donate through Patreon and receive monthly perks such as updates on the latest news on my channel, early access to reviews and commentaries before they go live on YouTube. Even the smallest donation can help keep this channel going. Thank you.